Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons, and love are told. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you won't miss any of my upcoming stories. My name is Harold, and if someone had told me that the deepest wound in my life would come not from strangers, but from my own flesh and blood, I wouldn't have believed it. I was raised to think family was a sacred circle, untouchable and safe. But time taught me that sometimes the closest hands can hold the sharpest knives. Years ago, when my son Adrian came to me with hopeful eyes and an eager smile, I felt a surge of pride. He was 34 then, ambitious, with a wife he had married 2 years earlier, Celine. They lived in a cramped apartment downtown, and he told me he had found the perfect house, a 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood, with a small garden and enough room for the children he said they were planning. He wanted to start fresh, to build something solid. But he needed help. I had worked all my life as an engineer. My late wife, Clara, and I had built a stable life together, saving every penny we could. When Adrian asked for $300,000, I paused. It wasn't pocket change. It was the bulk of what Clara and I had set aside for our retirement. But I also remembered how much she had loved Adrian. She would have said, "Harold, help him. He's our only son." Her voice echoed in my mind, soft but certain. So I told Adrian yes. We drew up a simple agreement together, and he promised to repay the money over time. He hugged me tightly that day, his voice breaking with gratitude. "Dad, I won't let you down," he said. And I believed him. The first months were joyful. Adrian and Celine moved into their new home, hosting dinners, inviting me over often. They spoke about their plans to renovate the kitchen, about maybe adopting a dog, about how Celine dreamed of buying luxury furniture to fill the space. I saw my son smile, and I thought I had done the right thing. I thought I had secured his happiness. But happiness can sour quicker than milk in the sun. I noticed changes. Calls grew less frequent. Invitations stopped. When I did drop by, Celine's smile was thin, almost forced, her eyes calculating. Adrian avoided direct answers when I asked about the repayment plan, brushing it aside with "Soon, Dad, don't worry." I started to worry. Then one afternoon, I received a phone call from an old neighbor in Adrian's area. "Harold," she said cautiously, "did you know Adrian sold the house? Some moving trucks came today, and strangers are moving in." My heart thumped hard in my chest. I drove over immediately, my palms sweaty against the steering wheel. It was true. The house was empty, stripped of furniture. A sold sign stood glaring in the front yard. My son stood in the driveway, arms crossed, Celine beside him wearing sunglasses even though the sun was fading. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. Adrian didn't meet my eyes. He shrugged. "We sold it. We found something better." I stared at him, words tangling in my throat. "What about the loan, Adrian? The $300,000 I gave you for this house." He shifted uncomfortably, but Celine stepped forward before he could speak. "Loan?" she said with a laugh, sharp and bitter. "That was a gift. You're his father. Isn't that what parents do? Support their children? Don't make this ugly." Her words struck me harder than any fist could. I looked at Adrian, searching his face for contradiction, for a sign he would defend me. But he said nothing. His silence was heavier than her laughter. I pulled out the signed agreement, my hands shaking. "You both signed this. This wasn't a gift. It was a loan. Clara and I saved for decades. This was our security." Celine rolled her eyes. "Old man, no one cares about your papers. You gave it because you love him. Stop pretending otherwise." The anger in me boiled. "Adrian," I said, my voice breaking, "tell her the truth. Tell her what we agreed on." Finally he looked at me. But his expression wasn't of shame or regret. It was hard, distant. "Dad, things change. We needed the money. Celine deserves comfort, and I need to give it to her. Don't make this a fight. Just let it go. Let it go." The words pierced me. I had let many things go in my life. The small disappointments, the missed birthdays, the cold shoulder when Celine thought I was interfering. But this was my livelihood, my trust, my love twisted into something unrecognizable. As I drove home that evening, the weight in my chest was suffocating. My small house, once a place of warmth with Clara's laughter echoing through the halls, felt colder than ever. I sat in her old armchair, the smell of her perfume still faint on the fabric, and I wept. For my money, yes, but more than that, for my son. For the boy who had once held my hand in crowded streets, who had once whispered that he wanted to be just like me. Where had he gone? The phone rang late that night. It was Adrian again. His tone was casual, almost dismissive. Dad, Celine and I are between places for now. We'll be staying with you for a while. You've got the space. My breath caught. The betrayal was still fresh, and now he expected to invade the only sanctuary I had left. No, I said firmly, surprising even myself with the strength in my voice. You are not moving in here. He scoffed. Don't be dramatic. We're family. You owe us this much. I hung up, my hand trembling, my heart aching. I knew then that things would not end here. What I didn't know was how much darker the storm was about to get. When I told Adrian that he and Celine could not move into my house, I thought the matter was settled. I thought maybe, just maybe, he would pause, reflect, and realize the weight of what he had done. But I underestimated how far greed and entitlement could carry two people who no longer saw me as a father, but as a tool to be used until broken. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a car door slamming in my driveway. I peered through the curtains and my stomach dropped. Adrian's silver SUV sat there, trunk open, bags spilling from the back. Celine stood with her arms crossed, tapping her foot impatiently. Adrian rang the doorbell once, then again more forcefully, the sound echoing through the small house like an alarm. I opened the door cautiously. I told you. Celine pushed past me before I could finish, the scent of her heavy perfume filling the hallway. We're not discussing this again. We're staying here. End of story. She dropped her bag on the floor with a loud thud, scuffing the hardwood Clara had polished for years. Celine, I shouted, my voice shaking. This is my home. You can't just walk in here. Adrian followed behind her, his expression grim but resigned. Dad, don't make this harder. It's temporary. We'll be out when we're ready. My chest tightened. I stood in the center of the living room, the framed photographs of Clara and I on the mantel seeming to watch the scene with quiet disapproval. No, I said louder this time, forcing the word out like a shield. You are not welcome here. Celine's eyes narrowed. You selfish old man, she hissed. After everything Adrian has done for you, this is how you treat him? You think you're some kind of saint because you waved a check in his face? That money was nothing compared to what we deserve. Her words struck like daggers. I turned to Adrian, hoping to find even a flicker of reason in his face. Adrian, I pleaded. This house was your mother's haven. She painted these walls, planted the roses outside, and made this place a home. Don't disrespect her memory like this. For a moment, I thought I saw hesitation. But Celine's hand gripped his arm, pulling him back into her orbit. Don't listen to him, she snapped. He's trying to manipulate you. The tension grew unbearable. My pulse raced, and I pointed toward the door. Get out. Both of you. Right now. What happened next was something I never imagined my own daughter-in-law would do. Celine stepped forward so suddenly that I didn't have time to react. Her hand shot out, shoving me hard against the wall. My shoulder cracked against the frame, pain shooting through my arm. You don't get to tell us what to do, she spat, her face inches from mine. You're old. You're alone. You should be grateful that anyone still wants to be around you. The world tilted, rage and humiliation crashing through me in waves. My breath came in short gasps, not just from the pain in my shoulder but from the realization of how far things had fallen. This woman had assaulted me in my own home. And my son, my only son, stood by and did nothing. Celine, stop, Adrian muttered weakly, but he didn't move. He didn't step in to help me, to defend me, to show even the faintest shred of loyalty. I forced myself upright, gripping the wall for balance. Get out of my house, I roared, my voice echoing louder than I thought possible. Now or I'll call the police. Celine sneered, but she must have seen something in my eyes. Something that told her I was done being a victim. With a scoff, she grabbed her bag and stormed toward the door. Adrian lingered, his face twisted in some mix of shame and anger. before he followed her. When the door slammed shut behind them, I collapsed into Clara's chair, clutching my shoulder, tears burning in my eyes. Not from the pain, but from the devastation. How did it come to this? How had my love and sacrifice turned into this battlefield where I was treated like nothing? As night fell, I sat in silence, staring at Clara's photograph on the mantel. Her smile seemed to hold me up even now. "What would you do, Clara?" I whispered. And in that quiet I almost heard her answer. "Stand up, Harold. Protect yourself. Don't let them destroy what we built." The next morning, I walked across the street to see my neighbor, Mrs. Lopez. She was in her 70s, sharp-witted and kind, someone Clara used to bake cookies with on weekends. When she saw my bruised shoulder, her eyes widened. "Harold, what on earth happened?" I told her everything about the loan, the betrayal, the attempt to move in, and Celine's attack. By the time I finished, her lips were pressed tight, her face set with determination. "You can't let this go," she said firmly. "They'll keep taking until you have nothing left." Her words struck deep. That afternoon, I made a call I had been hesitant to make for years. Martin Graves, an old friend of mine and one of the finest lawyers in the city, picked up after 2 rings. His voice carried the same calm confidence I remembered from our younger days. "Harold," he said warmly, "it's been too long." "What's wrong?" I explained everything, my voice faltering only once when I spoke of Clara. When I finished, there was a pause. Then Martin said, "You did the right thing by calling me. That signed agreement you mentioned? It makes this more than a personal betrayal, it makes it a legal matter. And Celine putting her hands on you? That's assault. We can pursue this." For the first time in weeks, hope flickered inside me. "But Adrian's my son," I said softly. "Taking him to court." "Harold," Martin interrupted gently, "sometimes the hardest thing we can do for the people we love is to hold them accountable. This isn't just about money. It's about your dignity. Clara would want you to fight." I hung up the phone with my heart pounding, a strange mix of fear and determination coursing through me. I knew this would not be easy. It would mean facing my son in ways I never wanted to. But something inside me had shifted. That night, as I locked the doors and checked the windows, I realized I was no longer the same man who had wept in Clara's chair days earlier. I was ready to defend myself, ready to gather every ounce of strength I had left. If Adrian and Celine thought they could strip me of my peace and my dignity, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The morning after my call with Martin, I woke with a strange steadiness in my chest. For the first time since Adrian had taken that money, I felt like I wasn't just drifting in a sea of betrayal. I had a direction now. Clara's photograph on the mantel seemed to gleam in the morning light, as if she approved of the path I had chosen. I made myself a strong cup of coffee, opened the small drawer where I kept the signed loan agreement, and laid it flat on the table. That single piece of paper, once just a formality between father and son, was now my weapon. Martin wasted no time. He came to my house that very afternoon, a stack of folders under his arm. His hair was grayer than I remembered, his glasses slipping down the bridge of his nose, but his eyes carried the same spark of sharp intelligence. He studied the agreement carefully, nodding as he traced each signature with his finger. "This is airtight," he said. "Adrian signed this and Celine witnessed it. They can't claim it was a gift." I felt both relieved and sick. Relieved that my trust in that piece of paper wasn't foolish, but sick that my own son had tried to erase it as though it meant nothing. Martin leaned forward. "We'll start simple. A formal demand letter. It'll give Adrian the chance to make things right without going to court. But if he refuses, we'll move forward with a lawsuit. And Harold, this isn't just about recovering your $300,000. We'll include damages for the assault. I'd estimate at least $50,000. Hearing those words, my breath caught. The thought of dragging my son and daughter-in-law into court was unbearable. But then I remembered Celine's sneer as she shoved me, the bruise on my shoulder, Adrian's silence while it happened. No, this wasn't just unbearable, it was necessary. I began documenting everything. Every phone call, every text, every interaction. I bought a small recorder at Martin's suggestion, keeping it in my pocket whenever I spoke to Adrian. Weeks passed with silence from them, until one evening my phone rang. Adrian's name lit up the screen. My stomach twisted, but I pressed record and answered. Dad, he began, his voice cold. We got some ridiculous letter from your lawyer. What are you trying to pull? It's not ridiculous, I replied evenly. You owe me $300,000. You signed for it. And Celine assaulted me. I'm not letting this go. Adrian scoffed. That was no loan and you know it. You're making a fool of yourself. Drop this before it gets ugly. It's already ugly, I said, my voice shaking but strong. I want my money, Adrian. And I won't be threatened in my own home. His voice hardened. If you push this, you'll regret it. Don't forget I'm your son. I hung up without another word. My hands trembled, but the recorder sat in my pocket like a shield. Proof. Evidence. Truth. Martin sent the demand letter officially the next day, and as expected, Adrian refused. So we filed suit. The process was grueling: depositions, paperwork, hearings, but Martin guided me through every step, steady as a captain steering a ship through storm. My neighbors rallied around me, dropping off meals, checking in, assuring me I wasn't alone. I felt Clara's strength in every kind word. When the day of the court hearing arrived, I walked into the courthouse with Martin by my side. Adrian sat at the opposite table, his face pale, his jaw tight. Celine wore a black dress, her lips pressed in a thin line, eyes darting like a cornered animal. For a moment, my heart twisted. This was my son. This was the boy I once carried on my shoulders, who used to fall asleep clutching my finger. But then I remembered his words, his silence during Celine's assault, his betrayal. My resolve hardened. Martin presented the loan agreement clearly and firmly. He played the recording of Adrian's threats, the courtroom falling silent as my son's voice echoed against the walls. When Martin described the assault, I felt every pair of eyes turn to Celine. She shifted uncomfortably, crossing her arms. Adrian's lawyer tried to argue that the money had been a gift, that no father would demand repayment from his son. But the judge looked at the signed agreement and shook his head. This is a contract, he said. And contracts are binding, even between family. When the verdict came, it was like a weight lifting from my chest. Adrian and Celine were ordered to repay me the full $300,000 plus interest, totaling $372,000, as well as $50,000 in damages for the assault. They were also ordered to cover part of my legal fees. The look on Celine's face was venomous. Adrian sat motionless, his shoulders slumped, his eyes refusing to meet mine. In the weeks that followed, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Celine had to sell her beloved Mercedes, that their designer furniture was hauled away, that they were drowning in debt to cover the judgment. For years, I had imagined my sacrifice securing their future. Instead, their greed and cruelty had destroyed it. When the final payment came through a wire transfer confirming every penny had been returned, I sat in Clara's chair and let out a long, shuddering breath. Not just relief but triumph. I had reclaimed not only my money but my dignity. One evening, Adrian came to my door. He looked smaller than I remembered, as though the weight of everything had finally crushed him. Dad, he said softly, I know I've hurt you. I want to fix this. Can we start over? I studied him for a long moment. Part of me longed to open the door wide, to embrace him, to believe he could be the son I once knew. But trust is not rebuilt overnight. Adrian, I said quietly, you've broken something that may never heal. If you want a relationship with me again, you'll have to earn it. And I don't know if you can. He nodded slowly, tears gathering in his eyes. Then he turned and walked away. I closed the door gently, the click of the lock echoing through the quiet house. I didn't feel joy or even sorrow. I felt peace. Justice had been served. Clara's memory had been honored. And I had proven to myself and to the world that even in old age, a man could stand tall against betrayal. Friends, if you've stayed with me this far, I want you to take this with you. Never let anyone, not even family, strip you of your dignity. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are protection. Love is precious, but love without respect is poison. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Moral lesson. Life has a way of testing us in the places we least expect. Betrayal rarely comes from the hands of strangers. It comes from the ones we trusted most, the ones we gave everything to. But standing up for yourself, even against family, is not an act of hatred. It is an act of self-respect. My journey showed me that silence only empowers those who seek to use us, while courage draws the line between love and exploitation. If you are listening to this, know that your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice for others, but by how firmly you guard your peace. There will always be voices telling you to give more, bend further, accept less. But there is a strength inside you, quiet, unshakable, that knows when enough is enough. Trust that voice. And if you have ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or mistreated by those closest to you, I want you to remember this. Justice is not always swift, but it is possible. Healing is not always easy, but it is within reach. Hold on to your dignity, because once you reclaim it, no one can ever take it from you. A guy.